On August 6th, I made a video with 11 predictions for the 1.0 update for Grounded. Today, I'm going to look back at those predictions and see how many I got right. So what we're going to do is we're going to breeze through this video and see what my 11 predictions were, see how many I got right and how many I got wrong.
Number 1, mixers will be repeatable. Mixers were introduced in the Bug Strike Back update, and they were the feature I was most excited for.
Mixers are definitely one of the best things that, or at least personally, that I like that was added to the game. I love base defense games. I love tower defense games. I have thousands of hours in tower defense games. So adding the base defense portion back to the game, because it did exist way back in the beginning, but they kind of took it out when they got rid of the base raids. They did bring them back with the faction reactivity and the mixers. Unfortunately, the mixers are not repeatable, but they did add some super mixers, so I guess that's a okay trade-off.
While they were a great addition to the game, I was disappointed they were one-time only events. This could change when the game is complete, as game director Adam Brennicky said having mixers be repeatable was a highly requested feature that was being looked at. For those of you who are like me and enjoy the base defense elements of Grounded, let's hope we get to repeat mixers as many times as we like come 1.0.
So yeah, it was a highly requested feature, as mentioned by the game director. I know I wasn't the only one. For anybody who likes base defense games, I know some people don't really like the base defense aspect, and you can completely avoid the mixers. They're optional. You don't have to do the super mixers. They will make the end of the game much easier because there's a mutation that goes along with them, or they'll make them a little bit easier. It'll also give you an idea of kind of how you need to do the final defense, because if you go into that final defense without having done any of the mixers, it's going to probably be a really uphill battle. It already is difficult as it is, but not knowing how to build for it is going to make it really hard. Now, hopefully they maybe reconsider this in the future. I'm not counting on it, but I'd love to see mixers be repeatable, or maybe just having even more mixers added, something like that. I love the base defense aspect of the game, and I'd love to see them more of it.
Number 2, weather will not be added to Grounded. A weather system has been on the feature board for as long as I can remember, and while it will be an amazing addition to the game, I just don't see it happening. At least not how we might have expected it.
So as we know in 1.0, the weather was not, there was no weather system added to the game. There was no sprinklers, no weather. It is still on the feature board, but the feature board has not been updated. Personally, based on the performance of the game, kind of like how it runs on older systems, older PCs, I really can't imagine having a weather system added to the game, because just adding the weather particles, especially if they were going to not be more than just like a visual, if they were actually going to, like, if there was rain, like, going to make the ground wet, or if it was going to be wind where it was moving things around, or if there was going to be snow, just the particle effects from that alone would probably completely kill FPS, especially on older systems. I personally, when I stream the game or record, I have to cap it at 60 FPS, and I have a fairly decent computer. If I'm not streaming, I can play it at uncapped FPS, but whatever, for some reason with OBS, when I'm recording or streaming, I basically have to cap it, otherwise it runs like a slideshow. And even then, sometimes it does still have like its hiccups. I've had to drop the graphics to medium and stuff like that. I know both my kids have had issues on their PCs as well, and it definitely has issues on the older consoles. So I just really don't see weather getting added because of those reasons. I'm sure they wanted to add it into the game, but I just don't see it happening.
Right now, performance isn't always the best, especially on older consoles, and adding a full-blown weather system would likely cause even more issues. In addition to that, having rainstorms or snow or other major weather events would realistically be devastating to any builds we've made. Instead, if a weather-like system is added, I expect it to be sprinklers turning on via a world event, similar to how the resource analyzers are activated and the weed killer is plugged. Number 3, the undershed will contain a cold biome.
Okay, so now we're 1 for 3. I was right about the first. I was wrong about the first one, right about the second one, wrong about this. So the undershed, of course, we can go in it. It's a really cool new biome. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any cold area. It's just dark. I was expecting perhaps to, well, let's see what I said right back in this previous video.
The undershed was, or at least we believe it was, shown in the 1.0 trailer, but in any case, it seems certain we will be heading there in the 1.0 release. There is already a theme song for it in the game, and a whiteboard in the Oak Tree Lab shows the location of 2 field stations under the shed. I believe it will also contain a cold biome, another highly requested feature, and one that might require the Mongolian or Viking-looking armor shown in the 1.0 trailer to enter.
So the armor that I was referring to in this previous video is the Black Ox armor. It is not going to provide any type of cold resistance or anything like that. It has completely different buffs and stuff. So unfortunately, they did not add a cold biome. It was one of the most highly requested features. People were suggesting like a refrigerator or just like a cold area under the shed, like under the house, all these different things. But unfortunately, it did not make it into the game. And more likely than not, we're probably not going to see it unless maybe they have some kind of surprise DLC.
Number 4, there will be no tier 4 armor, weapons, or items.
All right, we're back on the money here, so we're 2 for 4. There are no tier 4 armor, weapons, or items in the game. The highest tier is tier 3 for everything, so we're 2 for 4. Let's see what I said about this.
When asked if higher tier gear would be coming down the line during a live stream, game director Adam Brennicky said something along the lines of, "I don't think you want the answer to that." Some took that as confirmation there would indeed be tier 4 gear, but I took it the other way. Right now, tier 3 gear at max level is more than enough to get us through all the content in the game. While the full release will likely bring tougher enemies, if it comes with better gear, it will just make the endgame as easy as the rest of the game. I do expect more armor, weapons, and items than were shown in the 1.0 trailer, but I think they will all be tier 3 or lower.
So I was definitely right about the extra armors and weapons. They've all been added to the game that were they're tier 3. One thing that I was not right about was the end game is definitely not easy. The upper right part of the the new portion, and like the new bosses and stuff like that, the final defense, the super mixers, they're not a cakewalk. Even with max level gear, you're going to get beat up if you're not careful, if you're not perfect blocking, if you're not prepared for it, if you're not using the right gear, if you don't have heals, not using the right buffs, mutations, and so forth and so on. So the end game is not easy, even with max level gear. I still don't think it would make sense to add tier 4. I've seen people recently suggesting, oh, maybe they can add as a post 1.0 update, adding tier 4 stuff, or maybe making some of the boss armor or weapons into tier 4. It's just really not necessary. Tier 3 works perfectly fine. Adding a tier 4 weapon or armor would mean you'd have to have tier 4 enemies. And honestly, outside of the Black Widow, I don't really consider any of the regular enemies to be above tier 3. Most of them, once you understand their block patterns and whatnot, they're pretty straightforward in terms of taking them down. The Black Widow is a super challenge. I think it's probably tougher than most of the bosses, but outside of that, there's just no reason to have tier 4.
Number 5, getting all the gold cards will be an achievement.
Okay, so this one I'm not sure about. I know that there's an achievement for getting 100% on your report card. I've seen conflicting reports saying, actually, currently, I don't believe you can get 100%. I think there's a bug with it. I think you can only get 99%. So I'm not sure if getting all the gold cards is a requirement or if it's just optional. I think there's an achievement for peeping all the bugs, but I don't believe there's an achievement specifically for getting all the gold cards, although it might be tied to getting that 100% of the report card, but I don't really know until they fix that bug where it's not registering it.
We've already been told getting all the gold cards will likely reward us with something, and I think that something is an achievement. I've seen suggestions for giving us more resource drops or buffs in combat against enemies we have gold cards for, but with the current system that seems very unlikely. Right now we have a 1 to 2% chance of getting most gold cards, and tying that to something as impactful as more loot drops or buffs in combat doesn't make much sense. Unless the chance of obtaining gold cards is increased, it's very likely that most players will finish the game before acquiring many of them, thus making any bonuses tied to them less meaningful. I think collecting them all would be much better suited as an achievement for players that like the 100% games.
So I still stand by that. I think they did increase the drop rate, or maybe my RNG's been super lucky since 1.0. I have been getting a lot more gold cards a lot more frequently than I was in the past. So maybe they upped it. I still don't think it would make sense to have it be like you get extra damage or you have a bit more resistance or you get extra parts on an RNG drop like that. So if it's tied to that achievement for the 100%, that's cool. If not, no big deal. It'll just be something for like the super hardcore players to work towards.
Number 6, there will be at least 10 new bugs or creatures. We already know a Mantis and Black Widow are coming to Grounded, as well as the man creature shown in the 1.0 trailer. We've seen Black Widowlings in a previous PTS, and several other bugs of items in the game files, including a dragonfly and earwig. A butterfly has also been talked about, and many others have been suggested. While not every bug that has items in the game files are guaranteed to be coming to the game, I think we'll see a few surprises, and in the end, the 1.0 update will introduce at least 10 new bugs or creatures.
Okay, so we're going to have to get out the little old notepad here because I honestly don't remember how many we got. So we're going to do, we know we got the Mantis, we got the Mant, we got the Director, we have the Black Widowling, and the Black Widow. There is a Tick, Fire Ant Worker, Fire Ant Soldier, Moth. Is there anything else I'm missing? Now I have that Tiger Mosquito, Spiny Waterflea. I think that's sort of called her Spiky Waterflea. I can't remember which one it's called. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If I missed any, that's okay. We at least got, there's at least 11 of them. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Off the top of my head, I can't recall there being anything else. So I think it is 11. But if it's more, I mean, at least I got that right. So what are we up to? I think we're I'm not sure about that gold card one. So far, I think we're about 3 for 5 if we don't count the gold card one, because I'm not sure about that one.
Number 7, there will be at least 5 new bosses.
Well, this is a big letdown because there's only currently 5 bosses in the game, unless you count the Termite King. And the 1.0 update only added, what was it, 2 new bosses? 3 new bosses. So let's see which ones I predicted here.
Along the same lines, we already know of at least one new boss, the Mantis, which was shown in the 1.0 trailer, and we've also been told there will be more. While I don't think the Black Widow will be a boss, I think the Man Creature will, as well as the long-awaited Ant Queen. I think there will be a few more that most people won't be expecting, and that means we'll have the opportunity to fight at least 5 new bosses before finishing the Grounded story.
So we did get the Mantis, that's 2. The Director would be 3. However, we did not, the Black Widow honestly could be considered a boss, although it's not technically a boss. And we did not get the Ant Queen. The Ant Queen did not make it into the final game. There was also a lizard boss that did not make it into the final game. And not sure, there were dragonflies and stuff. I think I mentioned earlier that dragonflies were supposed to have like tier 4, so they might have been a boss at one point. So unfortunately, we only got 3 new bosses. They are all cool. They're all good fights. They're tough fights. Well, 2 of the 3 are tough fights. One of them is kind of a pushover, which I probably will see getting, I see that getting a buff at some point in the future. But that's okay. We ended up getting, at least we have 5 total bosses. Would have loved to see more. Maybe more will get added in the future. They could always add them as optional because most of the bosses are optional in the game. They could add the optional bosses into areas like the Ant Queen or perhaps the Lizard or something else into areas of the map where it would be optional to fight them and not actually impact the story. Or maybe they'll revamp the story and have them tied into it.
Number 8. The final boss won't be Dr. Tully or any other bug or creature we've seen.
So the final boss is, there's not really a final boss. If you haven't finished the game, I don't want to spoil it for you. There's actually just a final defense. So that's the final thing. The final boss that you technically fight would be the Director. So I guess I was right in that case. It's definitely not Dr. Tully. He ended up being a good guy. I think I talk about that more. So let me just see what I said here so I don't end up spoiling a future prediction.
When I ran a poll asking who the most likely final boss would be in Grounded, the winner by a landslide was Dr. Wendell Tully. I don't think he or any other bug or creature we've seen so far, or in the 1.0 trailer, will be the final boss. Instead, I think it will be a surprise that none of us expected. Number 9. Burgle won't turn out to be evil. Another fan favorite idea is that Burgle will turn on us and either be a boss we have to fight or will somehow sabotage our plans for getting unshrunk. In a twist that most wouldn't see coming, I think Burgle will not only be a good guy, but will help us overcome the final boss on our way to getting unshrunk.
So definitely right about this. Burgle did, spoiler warning, if you haven't heard this, I guess you should probably stop watching, but Burgle basically just turned out to be a good guy. He's there to help us. He helps us when we go fight one of the other bosses. So Burgle ended up being completely a good guy. So we're up through 9 of them, and without the gold card one, without me knowing, I guess we're gonna say there's been 8 predictions so far. So I'm 5 for 8. That's pretty good so far.
Number 10. Dr. Tully himself will help us get unshrunk. I already predicted Dr. Tully wouldn't be the final boss, and I also think we won't fight him. In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say that he will not only be a good guy after all, but along with Burgle will help us complete the embiggening cocktail so we can get unshrunk.
100% correct on this. Tully turns out he is there. I don't know. He's not evil. He does have us have to go through a boss fight to get to him, but in the end, he does end up helping us. He ends up calling on Burgle to help us get into a specific area. So in the end, Burgle and Dr. Tully ended up being good guys, and they help us get through the story and get unshrunk to see the ending. So what's that put us at 6 for 10 now, or 6 for 9? 6 for 9.
Number 11. There will be no major updates after 1.0. If you know me or you've watched any of my content, you know I look at every situation from a purely analytical standpoint. While I'd love to see more content or DLCs added to Grounded after 1.0, I just don't see that happening. We know the story will be complete, there are no plans for going into the house or other yards, which would be the most likely scenarios for DLCs, and the only post 1.0 updates that have been confirmed are bug fixes and perhaps some cosmetic additions like more stuffed bugs. We also know the developers have at least 2 other major games in development, and that Grounded was a passion project with a small team dedicated to it. For me, all signs point to 1.0 being the final major update for Grounded, with a few minor updates afterwards to fix any bugs or add any small things that didn't make it into 1.0.
So obviously we don't know if number 11 is going to come true because we don't know if there's going to be future updates. So far there's been a single patch that did some bug fixes and optimization and stuff like that. They have basically told us there's no plan. The story's complete. They mentioned on the live stream last week, I believe it was, that there's no plans to add any other new bugs to the game, which means there's not going to be any new armors or weapons. So more content seems unlikely. The only thing that sounds like it's going to happen is going to be adding in stuff bugs and then wall mounts for all the existing or all the creatures that are in the game. So that number 11, I guess, is still up in the air. We don't know what's going to happen. So we're not going to count that one. We're going to skip the gold card one as well. Cause like I said, I don't know if that gold card achievement is actually an achievement or if it's just not. So all the other 9, I ended up getting 3 wrong, 6 right. The ones I got wrong were the mixer being repeatable, the undershed having a cold biome, and 5 new bosses. We only ended up getting 3 new bosses. The ones I got right were no weather, no tier 4 or anything basically, at least 10 new bugs or creatures, the final boss being something we hadn't seen before, Burgle being a good guy, and Tully helping us get unshrunk. So all in all, 6 out of 9, not bad. 67% based on just speculation and stuff like that. So let me know if you had any predictions, whether or not they came true in the comments down below. If you found this video interesting, make sure to hit the like button. Here's another video you might like as well.